Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. And just for the record, I'm putting this video up because I think it's going to be quite central in the future, and we need to capture it. It's former Eskom CEO Brian Molefe in the hot seat at the Zondo Commission. And what I've done is I've taken just one extract from this lengthy interview by Zondo with Molefe and the lawyer, where they're discussing his background and how he got appointed as CEO of Eskom and the role of the Guptas. Now, in this short extract, relatively short extract, you will see how everything is so compromised. Let's listen to that first.
The central figure in this is Mr. Salim Essa, who, as we have already indicated to you, the evidence of Mr. Henk Bester in 2014, who says this is what Mr. Salim Essa said. We have already decided that Mr. Molefe will be the CEO of Eskom. Wait. Then you have, on the 10th of March 2015, when Ms. Suzanne Daniels goes to Melrose Arch, Mr. Salim Essa introduces himself as the minister's advice to her. And that refers to Minister Lynn Brown. Then you have, again, the involvement of Mr. Essa when Mr. Tsotsi does the composition of the subcommittees of the Eskom board, that Mr. Essa proposes to him who should be on those subcommittees. And Minister Lynn Brown gives Mr. Tsotsi the same names or list of names that had been received from Mr. Salim Essa. And Mr. Tsotsi is called to the minister's office, where, according to him, he finds the minister with Mr. Tony Gupta and Mr. Salim Essa. And the minister insists on a particular list for the composition of the subcommittees. So when the minister then comes to you, it seems that there is more than just the minister behind the decision for your secondment. You may want to comment, or you have no comment. I'm just painting the picture to you.
I'm tempted to comment. Chairperson, if you can observe events, some of them imagined, some of them real, and you observe them either in your head or outside happening, and then you decide that you would like to paint a picture. You can paint any picture. These dots, these mythical dots, can be construed from anything. Related events or unrelated events. You can take things that happen in a particular way as a result of coincidence, that happen in, I'm telling you that I don't know about these meetings. I don't know Mr. Salim Essa.
Yes.
And yet, you take all these events that were happening. Well, I can even ask, on the day that Mr. Bester and Mr. Salim Essa had that meeting, was it raining? And was the fact that it was raining part of the dot? Or was it a full moon? Or anything can be connected to anything, Chairperson. People who come here and say they are connecting a dot. As I'm sitting here, I can look at the sky and imagine a lion and actually connect the dots between the different stars, the stars at night. You can see a lion if you look very carefully, if you connect the dots. So, Chairperson, I in law, there was I don't know, I never studied law. I know a lot of people who did, but I didn't. But there is a theory of causation. What if somebody wakes up in the morning and starts by going to the bathroom and comes back and sleeps in the kitchen? What was the cause of death? Is it the fact that they woke up and went to the bathroom? But because so you can connect dots to anything. And in fact, this is a matter actually in law that is dealt with quite extensively about the theory of causation. You cannot go and find all sundry events and try to connect them and find causation.
Okay.
I think they call it the theory of causation, approximate causation, not all the events that were happening in a restaurant in Melrose Arch, or a discussion that people had on a rainy Sunday evening, and say that it is, after they left that day, maybe somebody got to a traffic light and caused an accident. You could say that it was because of that discussion.
I think it's fair enough your response that you were not in those meetings.
Yes, I was not in those meetings. Let's leave it there,
I think
Chairperson. I think we can ignore the fact that I tried to venture into the law.
Yeah. No. But you remember we spoke about perspectives, even if it's the same facts. Part of this is for you to be able to say, well, I don't know about this and that, but there is a flaw in this reasoning when you try to connect this and this and this, as I see it. So I wasn't there, but this doesn't connect. So that perspective. But if you say, look, I don't think that this means anything really, I mean, that's fine.
I think, therefore, Chair, my comment, to be fair to Mr. Silver, is to say that I note that you're talking about events that happened that I was not aware of, most of them. They may or may not be forming a picture. I cannot definitively say, and I don't think anyone can, say that there is a picture that you draw from events that are carefully selected to paint a picture.
Now, what I find extraordinary is the compliant nature of Raymond Zondo, the commissioner of the Zondo Commission. He doesn't really push questions. He's basically just a yes man when it comes to Brian Molefe. And clearly, Brian Molefe is one of the black privileged ANC cadres who was deeply involved in state capture and what happened with Eskom as the CEO. And this is why I think the whole Zondo Commission is a complete and utter farce. But here comes the lengthy piece where you'll see everything in context. You'll see how compliant Zondo is with the person who's been cross-examined. It is quite extraordinary. Please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. Ring the bell for the updates. Please like this video. Please share this video. And above all, please stay safe. Bye for now.
But it's standard something. But anyway.
Mr. Molefe, sorry. I was saying to the chairperson, while you are thinking, I must remind you that your pilot experience and estimation of time should not fail me.
Well, the chairperson just gave me. Yeah. But chairperson, in South Africa, there was a family that had come from India, had established themselves as business people, and had opened a computer company. And, well, I heard that they were doing quite well. And I went to them and I asked, if one wants to establish a bank, where can one get the capital? How can one raise the capital to establish such a bank? And they said, that is very interesting. In India, we have banks that are Indian-owned. that are our banks, like Bank of Baroda and several others. Let us speak to some people in India, to see if they will be able to assist you. And they did. I'm not sure if I should mention who they spoke to, but they spoke to one of the richest people in India. I met him. I'm just reluctant to release his name now. And he agreed. And he said, we'll do the deal. After 5 minutes of discussion, I said, I'll help you buy NetBank. I was happy, I was elated. And we went to the Reserve Bank with this person and the Guptas and Mr. AJ Gupta. And we got to the Reserve Bank, and the banking supervision said, no, we can't allow this to happen. NetBank can't be sold. We've already sold Standard Bank to the Chinese. We've already sold ABSA to the English. I remember when the Barclays Bank came to the PIC when I was CEO to say that they would like to buy ABSA. And I said to them, I didn't think that the Anglo-Boer War would end like this. And anyway, but then the Reserve Bank was reluctant to proceed. And with the Reserve Bank reluctant to proceed, the governor was Mr. Mboweni. I don't know if I'm implicating him, but he was Mr. Mboweni. And I even saw him. We had a code for this. If you ask him what is the Groblersdal minute, he will tell you what it is. It was about a black bank. It was about buying NetBank. So it was turned down by the Reserve Bank. So we didn't proceed. And so I was left. Then I thought I'd establish a property company. I spoke to Investec, and they were prepared to help in however way they could help. And then one day.
Don't speak too far away from your mic.
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, okay.
And then one day, I got a call. Not from the Guptas, from a headhunter called Brian. Now I'm talking about, I'm talking about Transnet now. Oh, how I know the Guptas. Okay, that is how I know them, Chairperson. Because this one, now I'm going to Transnet. Now I'm going to how I went to Transnet. Yeah. But that is how I got to know them. We're doing this deal. And right through the years, Chairperson, we never stopped talking about this bank. And even up to today, I'm still talking about it. And even up to today, I'm still on that mission, Chairperson, of Dr. Motsunyane. Hopefully, before he passes on, we can make him proud.
Okay, so
Mr. Selega.
Thank you, Chair. So the interaction with them dates a while back when you were at PIC, and it seems in that process, as you say, you came to know them very well. Yes. Just keep your microphone on.
I can also mention that while I was at the PIC, they also tried to do deals there.
They also tried to do deals there.
Yeah, with the PIC.
Please look this side so I can hear.
They tried to do deals with the PIC. They submitted funding applications.
Yes.
And they were not approved while I was there.
Yes.
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 They were not, there's not a single deal that they did with the PIC when I was there.
Are you able to remember when it was you started interacting with them while you were at PIC, from around which year?
Yeah, Chairperson, maybe around 2007, 2008.
Yeah,
As
okay.
you've seen,
Okay.
I can't even remember my own life.
Okay,
but
no, that's fine.
Yeah.
We won't hold you strictly to it. Just want an idea. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And we,
Continue.
well, talking about deals, sorry, I'm just going out of sequence a bit, but we will come to it. Talking about deals, Mr. Molefe, we know that at least at Eskom, to get which was having links with the Gupta brothers,
Yes,
did get deals at Eskom.
they did.
They did.
I'm sorry, Mr. Selega, I know I'm interrupting you.
Yes, Chair.
Before you get to Tegeta, let me ask some question to Mr. Molefe. So you started interacting with the Gupta brothers, Gupta family around 2008, that's your estimate?
Yes.
2007, 2008, you are not
Yes.
sure. And you said earlier on, you have been to their house, and I think you said
Yes.
many times, is that right?
Come again?
I think you said many times, is that
Yeah,
right?
several times.
Several times,
Yeah,
yes,
actually,
yes.
over the years, I mean,
Yes,
I've
yes.
lost count, actually, yeah. And I saw nothing wrong or abhorrent
Yes.
in
yes,
going to their house.
Yes.
I saw them, Chairperson, as people
Yes.
in South Africa
Yes.
who enjoy the rights
Yes.
that are in our constitution.
Yes.
I had no reason
Yeah.
to treat them like lepers,
Yes. Yes.
as people pretend that they did at the time when they met them for the first time. It was a normal relationship that I had with people that I had approached
Yes.
and who
yes.
had received us warmly to say,
Yes.
let's talk about establishing this institution.
Yeah.
They were foreigners that had come to South Africa, but they were
Yes.
prepared to buy into the vision of a bank that will belong to Africans. They were prepared to buy into the vision
Yes.
of taking that bank and making it a bank of Africans.
Yes.
Or like the African bank as had been the vision of Dr. Muzonyane.
Yes.
A lot of our own South African business people did not buy into that vision. Yeah. I don't want to go into names, but I actually at the time spoke to a lot of people who thought that, look, it
Yeah.
won't work.
No, that's fine. I assume that as the years went by, from around 2007, 2008, when you started interacting
Yes.
with them, did your relationship with them get stronger? Did you get closer in terms of the personal relationship or professional, whatever it was?
I can't say close.
Yes.
It depends on how you define close.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, but there were people that I knew.
You interacted with
I had
regularly.
interacted with. We
Yeah.
had tried to do this thing.
Yes.
It had not succeeded.
Yes.
And the vision was kept alive. Even
Yes.
when the Reserve Bank turned us down, I said to them that it does not mean that we must give up.
Yeah.
And whenever there was information, we would discuss it. For example, Bank of Baroda at some point became our target. It operates very successfully in Tanzania. And in fact, I have paid a lot of visits to Tanzania. And I
Yeah.
just made it my business to see some of the branches of Bank of Baroda in Tanzania. There was another one that operates out of Togo. It's EcoBank in Togo. That one, in fact, to Chairperson, Nedbank, they asked me, if you bought this bank and you became CEO of the bank, what would you do? I said, you know what your problem is as Nedbank? Now I realize that I was naive because I gave them a very important strategic thing that I had thought about. And it was even before we did the deal. I said, the biggest bank in Africa with the widest reach is actually EcoBank. It has more branches than any other bank in South Africa. It started in Nigeria. Most of its operations are in Nigeria. Its headquarters is in Lome. I don't know if you've ever been to Lome, Chairperson. It's a very interesting place. You see this market in town where they sell African traditional things. What's it called? Mai. Ooh, there's a big one there where they sell all sorts of things. But anyway, I went there and I saw it, the head office. I didn't go inside, just from outside. And it's a very impressive operations. But the problem with it is that their operations have not modernized. So they may be the bank with the largest reach of branches, but they don't have the, at the time, the issue was these ATMs. And now, it would be cell phone banking. Yeah, so they were not moving with the times. So I thought that if you Nedbank and you buy EcoBank and you modernize it with the reach on the whole continent, you've done something very big. And the deal didn't happen with Nedbank, but Nedbank went and bought EcoBank. But then they didn't do what needed to be done. They also did other things. Nedbank at the time only had outside the country. They were only in Lesotho and Namibia. And I thought, what is your reluctance to go outside of the South Africa? Well, of course, we know the reason. The reason is because Nedbank actually is a Netherlands bank. It came from the Netherlands. So, and it was an Afrikaner bank for a very long time. And perhaps that is why they never left South Africa. But they bought EcoBank with the PIC after I had left. So we would meet with the Guptas and talk about this and say, hey, look at what your friends are doing. Baroda, so and so on and so forth. Yeah. So we would discuss issues, most of the time, not relating to Transnet or Eskom, actually.
Okay. Mr. Selega.
Thank you, Chair. Morning. Mr. Molefe, insofar as Mr. Salim Essa is concerned, I did say that I will ask you this question about Mr. Henk Bester.
Yes.
Yes, remember Mr. Henk Bester says he had a meeting in 2014 with Mr. Salim Essa.
Yes.
And during the course of that meeting, Mr. Salim Essa said, to show you how powerful we are, something to that effect. We have decided that Mr. Brian Molefe is going to be the CEO of Eskom.
Yes.
That is in 2014, before the announcement for your secondment was made. 2014.
2014, yes.
Yes. So, how is it that he knew you and you say you didn't know him based on that incident?
Mr. Salim Essa?
Yes, Mr. Salim Essa. And you can say that, tell the chairperson what you said you're going to say.
What I said?
What you say will be your response to that question.
Yes, Chairperson. I was sitting at Rocco Mamas.
At
Rocco Mamas. You know Rocco Mamas, Chairperson? It's happening there. It's not a Shebeen, but it's a restaurant that sells very nice hamburgers. And not far from my table, there were two Indian ladies.
Is that in 2014?
Did you say Indian ladies?
Eh?
Did you say Indian ladies?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think they're sisters from the way that they looked. But I could overhear their conversation. And one of them kept saying that Mr. Zondo is going to be the next Chief Justice. I just think it would be unfair to ask you to comment on that. It's exactly the same thing.
No.
And,
You see,
and that Mr. Slika will be the deputy chief justice.
there is nothing wrong in being in saying, look, I can't comment. I don't know where he got that information from. If that's there's nothing wrong with that if you don't know. But if you may well have an idea where he might have got that from, in which case you say. But when you have no idea, you have no idea.
So you also don't know. So you also don't know where
What?
they got it from. No, I don't know, Chairperson, where that conversation came from, where it was going. I was not there. I have, in fact, I don't know Mr. Salim S. I've never met him.
Yeah. Well,
Did you know people that know him from whom he might have got that information, as far as you know, or you have no reason to think that he got it from anybody that you knew?
No, I actually, Chairperson, I don't know where he
You
got
don't
it
know
from.
where, yeah.
It's just like a lot of the rumors that go
Yeah.
round and round and
Yeah.
round and round. In fact, it is not something that I would normally apply my mind to and worry about and stress about and try to find out where it came
Yeah.
from. Because it is just,
Yeah.
it happens every day, Chairperson, that
Yes.
somebody was told in the corridor of a house, a strange house that he doesn't know, that about me. And he doesn't even know who that person is. I don't attach a lot of weight to.
No, that's fair enough. Part of the reason why Mr. Selega is asking is so that if you do know something, you can share it. If you don't know, you don't know.
No, I don't know.
There's no. But I think we may as well mention this, even though it might relate to Transnet, and you might be able to deal with it. You might, if you say you would prefer to deal with it when you come back to deal with Transnet, that will be fine. Now, I want to say you would know, I assume, that in 2010, December, the New Age, which was a newspaper owned by the Guptas, had an article, I don't know if it was December 6 or December 10, 2010, which was either saying Mr. Brian Molefe is going to be the next group CEO of Transnet or the next boss of Transnet, or whether it was simply saying it is likely that Mr. Brian Molefe is going to be the next group CEO of Transnet.
Yes.
Have you heard about that article?
Yes. Yes, I've heard about it. I also heard you talk about it here.
Yes. You
I
don't know where they got that information
I
from?
don't know. Did they say in the article where they got the information?
Sorry?
Did they say in the article where they got the information from?
I've read the article, if I recall correctly, but I can't remember whether, I don't think they would say, they might say certain reliable sources that had told them.
Did the article say who it was written by?
I'm sure it should show. I think the legal team can just make arrangements to make a copy of that article available to Mr.
No, I know about it. The point that I was trying to make is, did the commission therefore ask the person who wrote the article, where did you get that information?
Well, the commission's investigations are ongoing, but what I wanted you to be able to say something about, if you are able to, is to say we have a situation where it seems in 2010, a newspaper that is owned by the Gupta family or their entities seems to predict that you are going to be the next group CEO of Transnet, and it actually, that does happen. And then in 2014, according to Mr. Hank Bester, who gave evidence here, he meets with Mr. Salim Essa on some issue relating to Transnet business or contract, and Mr. Salim Essa wants Mr. Bester's company to work with his company. And according to Mr. Bester, in an attempt to show that they, I assume Mr. Salim Essa and whoever else he was talking about, are powerful people, he decided to tell him that, you know, we know that Mr. Brian Molefe is going to be the next boss of Eskom, and in less than a year, that does happen. You know. So you might say, look, I don't have comment. I don't know where that came from. That's fine, but it's fair to just say there is this. Do you have something to say about? Do you know anything about it?
No, I don't know anything about it. I did hear about the article at the time. In fact, I was out of the country. And somebody just came to me and said, hey, have you seen what's on social media? And then I said, I don't know what this is all about. And it was the end of the matter as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Molefe, let's deal with your secondment, because it has also come up here a couple of times, from your secondment from Transnet to Eskom. Tell the chairperson, how did that come about? Who approaches you, and what do they say to you?
Chairperson,
I'm giving you 2 minutes.
Keep your mic on, Mr. Molefe. Yeah, just keep it on.
As you can see, Chairperson, I'm very eager to help the commission.
I didn't hear that.
I say, as you can see, I'm very eager to help the commission.
Yes.
Chairperson, as you remember, in 2014, 15, the country suffered debilitating load shedding. It was so bad, Chairperson, that one day I went to a bank, and I wanted to go inside the bank at Irene Mall, which is a small mall. And I found the bank manager, Standard Bank manager, standing outside the bank. And he said, sorry, the bank is closed. I had never imagined that South Africa could come to that. That on a weekday, I think it was Wednesday.
I assume he said what was closed because of load shedding.
Load shedding.
Yeah.
It was in the middle of load shedding. The bank was closed. Around 10, 11 in the morning on a weekday, the bank manager was standing outside the bank and said, the bank is closed. And I was at Transnet. We were trying to ramp up the transportation of coal to Richards Bay because of the backlogs and so on and so forth with electric locomotives. There was a time when we were running about 36 trains on the coal line to Richards Bay, scheduling them, 36 trains in about 24 to 30 hours. That's a lot of trains, electric trains. And it takes time and planning to schedule trains like that. And it takes weeks for us to add a train, until you arrive at the point where you're running about one train every 45 minutes to Richards Bay. And then there would be load shedding on part of the line, and the whole system collapses. And it takes 3 to 4 weeks, maybe even more, 6 weeks, to get the scheduling going on again. So it really frustrated me on all sorts of levels. And then one day, during a function, I think at the port of Ngqura, Minister Brown said, if we asked you to go to Transnet, would you go?
Transnet or Eskom?
Sorry, Eskom.
Eskom.
Yeah, sorry, Chairperson, my life is, if we asked you to go to Eskom, would you go?
Who asked you? Sorry.
Minister Brown.
Minister Brown, Lynn Brown.
Lynn Brown, yes. And I said, yes. And she said, okay, And then a couple of days later, or maybe a week or so, and then she called back and said, okay, we're activating that thing.
She called back and said,
We're activating it.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
your move to Eskom.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I said, that's fine, Minister. And then, so I was aware that she was working on it. So she would have done the communications to the board and so on. She spoke, we spoke, actually between me and her on this matter, we spoke very few words.
Yes.
She asked and I agreed. There was no long debate and so on. And from my side, it was like, South Africa is really collapsing. The bank is closed at 10 o'clock in the morning or at 11 o'clock in the morning. And I saw the devastation on the rail line. And I thought about what I was doing at the Transnet was important, the implementation of the market demand strategy. But I felt, hey, Eskom is more serious. If I can help there, I should go there. And they activated it. She spoke to the boards. One day I was on my way to Cape Town. I remember it was a Friday afternoon. No, Thursday afternoon. I had been invited to speak as a guest at the graduation ceremony of, I think it was the Technicon, the Technicon in Cape Town, Western Cape Technicon. I don't know what they call it now. And I said, where? She said, where are you? I said, I'm at the airport, I'm going to Cape Town. She says, don't go. We're making the announcement tomorrow. And I called Mr. Carl Sotrikwa, who was the CEO of Transport Port Terminals. And I asked my PA to email him my speech at the graduation and asked him to go to Cape Town and deliver that speech. He was in Devon. And then I stayed, and she said, tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, you must be at Eskom on Friday. And then she made the announcement.
We know that she made the announcement, I think, on the 17th of April, 2015.
Yes.
That's correct, sir.
Yes. So, even if you don't remember the exact date when she, that is Minister Brown, raised this issue with you for the first time, how long before the 17th of April do you think it was? How much time lapsed between the time when she raised it for the first time with you and the day when it was announced?
Maybe a week
2
or
weeks.
a week and a half, something like that.
A week or a week and a half?
A week and a half, yeah.
Oh, okay,
That
all
she
right.
raised it with me.
From what you say, it looks like she was the first person to mention
Yes.
the possibility of you moving to Eskom.
Yes.
Yes.
And she managed the process of communicating to the boards, that the boards had taken the appropriate decisions.
Yes.
This was done, and I think in either one or both of them, it was an ex post approval, which is
Yes.
allowable.
Yes.
And then there was a proper agreement that was signed, and I went to Eskom.
Would it be fair to say your understanding was that she managed the whole process
Yes.
of your move from Transnet
Yes.
to Eskom?
Yes.
Okay.
And Chairperson, she was the shareholder of both companies.
Yes.
Representative shareholder, 100% shareholding. They
Yeah.
were hers.
Yeah.
I mean, they belong to the government. So if the
Yes.
government said, look, you must move from here to there to help there, at the time she said, you'll come back
Yeah.
to Transnet. It's just a
Yes.
secondment. There are certain things that I don't understand at Eskom. For example, she says, they are telling me that they can't pay salaries in 2 months. Majid Zimokolo repeated it yesterday, that at that time, they were not going to be able to pay salaries. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Slager.
Thank you. Mr. Molefe, during that time, did you know, or even prior to that time, did you know Dr. Ngubane?
No, I did not know Dr. Ngubane before I got to Eskom. I know about him. In fact, he was the ambassador to Japan.
Yeah.
And
Face the chairperson.
sorry?
Face to the chairperson.
Yes. Sorry, Chairperson. He was the ambassador to Japan, and I think I'm not sure if
He
my
had been a
memory.
cabinet minister at some stage before that as well.
He had been a cabinet
And
minister,
he had
but
been
in
premier of
Japan,
KZN at some stage.
yeah, I can't remember if he was still ambassador, but we went there and we did a deal.
In Japan,
Yeah, a Japanese yen deal. We
while
borrowed
he
money.
was the ambassador.
While he was, so we did a deal in the markets for South Africa. South Africa issued a yen bond. And we went to Japan to sell the bond to Japanese investors. I think I may have been with Ms. Makato. She was the head of foreign funding. And while he was there, while we were there doing the deal as a delegation representing the South African government, he hosted us. I think that was the first time that I had actually interacted with him closely. And then for many years, I never interacted with him until Eskom.
What name did you use? The first time you interacted with who?
Dr. Ngubane.
Oh, is that the name you used? I thought you used a different name.
No, I don't know his name, Digwere, if he has one.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because Ms. Matieti Mkolo says prior to the decision being made for you to be seconded, the Minister Lynn Brown gets called to a meeting at Eskom with Dr. Ngubane. At the time, he's an acting chairperson of Eskom board. In that meeting, when they arrived, that is the minister and Ms. Mkolo, they find the chairperson of Transnet, Miss Linda Mabaso. They found Dr. Ngubane and Mr. Zitembe Koza, who was at the time the acting CEO.
Yes.
And according to her impression, the person who introduces the idea of your secondment to Eskom is Dr. Ngubane. So that's the reason why I'm asking you whether, did you know Dr. Ngubane at the time?
I can't comment on that meeting, Chairperson. I don't know anything about it. I wasn't there. In fact, I was not aware that there had been such a meeting.
I think, Mr. Selega, you may have understood evidence like that, but I understood her, I think I understood her to be saying at the meeting, the person who raised the subject.
Who?
Well, the person who raised the
yes.
subject was Dr. Ngubane, which I didn't necessarily understand to say there may not have been discussions prior to that meeting,
Yes.
which she might have known nothing about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
no, that's a fair assessment, Chair, because I must also say, in addition to that, Chairperson, the same question was put to Dr. Ngubane, and Dr. Ngubane said this was a follow-up meeting, according to him. So there was a meeting before, and this was a follow-up meeting. According to Dr. Ngubane, it was the minister who asked him to second you, who suggested that you be seconded to Eskom.
Yes, I think Dr. Ngubane's evidence seems to be consistent with Mr. Molefe's evidence.
Correct.
Because Mr. Molefe says the first person who raised this issue with me of moving to Eskom was Minister Brown.
Yes.
Dr. Ngubane said that the idea that Mr. Molefe should be moved to Eskom came from Minister Brown.
Minister Brown.
So
Yes.
I think that's consistent. Yeah.
Chairperson, I was referring to my consciousness.
Yes.
Yes.
So the first time I got to know it is when the minister literally calls me aside during a function with many people, and we speak in low tones. And she says, would you go to Eskom? It didn't take 3 minutes. And that was it. So I don't know what happened before and after.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah.
No, that's all right. Yeah, because just for your information, I'm not, you may comment, you may not be able to. You see how the dots connect is because the central figure, I see you laughing, the central figure in this is Mr. Salim Essa, who, as we have already indicated to you the evidence of Mr. Henk Bester in 2014, who says this is what Mr. Salim Essa said. We have already decided that Mr. Molefe will be the CEO of Eskom. Wait. Then you have, on the 10th of March, 2015, when Ms. Suzanne Daniels goes to Melrose Arch, Mr. Salim Essa introduces himself as the minister's advice to her. And that refers to Minister Lynn Brown. Then you have, again, the involvement of Mr. Essa when Mr. Tsotsi does the composition of the subcommittees of the Eskom board, that Mr. Essa proposes to him who should be on those subcommittees. And Minister Lynn Brown gives Mr. Tsotsi the same names or list of names that had been received from Mr. Salim Essa. And Mr. Tsotsi is called to the minister's office, where, according to him, he finds the minister with Mr. Tony Gupta and Mr. Salim Essa. And the minister insists on a particular list for the composition of the subcommittees. So when the minister then comes to you, it seems that there is more than just the minister behind the decision for your secondment. You may want to comment, or you have no comment. I'm just painting the picture to you.
I'm tempted to comment. Chairperson, if you can observe events, some of them imagined, some of them real, and you observe them either in your head or outside happening, and then you decide that you would like to paint a picture. You can paint any picture. These dots, these mythical dots, can be construed from anything. Related events or unrelated events. You can take things that happen in a particular way as a result of coincidence, that happen in, I'm telling you that I don't know about these meetings. I don't know Mr. Salim Essa.
Yes.
And yet, you take all these events that were happening. Well, I can even ask, I mean, on the day that Mr. Bester and Mr. Salim Essa had that meeting, was it raining? And was the fact that it was raining part of the dot? Or was it a full moon? Or anything can be connected to anything, Chairperson. People who come here and say they are connecting a dot. I mean, as I'm sitting here, I can look at the sky and imagine a lion and actually connect the dots between the different stars, the stars at night. You can see a lion if you look very carefully, if you connect the dots. So, Chairperson, in law, there was I don't know, I never studied law. I know a lot of people who did, but I didn't. But there is a theory of causation. What if somebody wakes up in the morning and starts by going to the bathroom and comes back and sleeps in the kitchen? What was the cause of death? Is it the fact that they woke up and went to the bathroom? But because so you can connect dots to anything. And in fact, this is a matter actually in law that is dealt with quite extensively about the theory of causation. You cannot go and find all sundry events and try to connect them and find causation.
Okay.
I think they call it the theory of causation. Approximate causation, not all the events that were happening in a restaurant in Melrose Arch, or a discussion that people had on a rainy Sunday evening, and say that it is You know,
I-
after
I
they left
think-
that day, maybe
I-
somebody got to a traffic light and caused an accident. You could
Yes.
say that it was because of that discussion.
I think it's fair enough, your response that you were not in those meetings.
Yes, I was not in
Yeah.
those meetings. Let's leave
Yeah,
it there,
I think
Chairperson.
it's
I think we can ignore the fact that I tried to venture into the law.
Yeah. No. But you remember we spoke about perspectives, even if it's the same facts. Part of this is for you to be able to say, well, I don't know about this and that, but there is a flaw in this reasoning when you try to connect this and this and this, as I see it. So I wasn't there, but this doesn't connect. So that perspective. But if you say, look, I don't think that this means anything really. I mean, that's fine.
I think therefore, Chair, my comment, to be fair to Mr.
Yeah.
Senator, is to say that I note that you're talking about events that happened that I was not aware of, most of them. They may or may not be forming a picture. I cannot definitively say, and I don't think anyone can, say that there is a picture that you draw from events that are carefully selected to paint a picture.
Sure.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yes.
Well, maybe we, for the sake of completeness, we may as well also mention this, and if you have got something to say, you can use the opportunity to say it. If you really have nothing to say, you can. You don't have to say anything. According to Mr. Mcebisi Jonas,
Yes.
he gave evidence in the commission and said he had a meeting at the Gupta residence on the 23rd of October 2015.
Yes.
He said Mr. Tutuzane Zuma was in that meeting, Mr. Hlongwane was in that meeting, Fana Hlongwane, and he said there was a Gupta brother that was there. I think initially he said it was Mr. Ajay Gupta, but I think later on he said he was not sure about whether it was Mr. Ajay Gupta or one of the other
So he
brothers.
doesn't know who said it.
But what did emerge through the investigation of the commission, I think, is that, and I think Mr. Tutuzane Zuma accepted, is that Mr. Tony Gupta was in the house on the day of that meeting. But Mr. Tutuzane Zuma and Mr. Hlongwane, their version is Mr. Tony Gupta was not part of the meeting. He popped in at some stage and wanted to speak to Mr. Tutuzane Zuma, but he was not part of the meeting. But Mr. Jonas was adamant that there was a Gupta brother who was having a meeting with him. He said the two, namely Tutuzane Zuma and Mr. Hlongwane, were quiet most of the time. It was just that Gupta brother and himself were talking. One of the things that he said, the Gupta brother said, was that one, Mr. Nhlanhla Nene was going to be fired as Minister of Finance because he was not cooperating with them or not working with them or something to that effect. And we do know that about 6 weeks later, Mr. Nene was fired as Minister of Finance. And then he, according to Mr. Jonas, he wanted him to agree to take the job of being Minister of Finance and offered him some money. But one of the things that he says, the Gupta brother who he says was talking to him, that he said was that there were certain people that they were working with, and among those he mentioned Minister Lynn Brown, and he mentioned you. And according to Mr. Jonas, the Gupta brother who was there said, among other things, that Mr. Brian Molefe's career is well taken care of. I'm using my own words, something to that effect. So there is that as well. You might say, look, one, I wasn't in that meeting. I don't know what they were talking about. I don't have any comment, or I do have some comment, but I just want to make sure that you are aware that there is this evidence that Mr. Jonas gave. And if it's something that you hadn't looked at and you would rather deal with it later when you come back, that's fine as well. But if you say, look, I have no comments about it, that's also fine.
Yeah, Chairperson, the evidence of Mr. Jonas, he says he was at that house. I think I remember that he said somebody was in the passage. They met in a passage. He doesn't know who that person is. Even as you are describing now, he thought it was so-and-so, but then maybe it could have been so-and-so and so. And that person who he does not know said, we are taking care of Mr. Brian Molefe's career. Now, the weight of that evidence is very is light. It cannot be heavy. It cannot have a lot of, even though this is an inquiry, and this inquiry can accept hearsay, because that's what it is. It's hearsay. Even though it's an inquiry that can accept hearsay, but the quality of that hearsay is actually very bad, because it doesn't know who he had it from in the first place. And he says that I think he even said that that person was not part of the meeting.
Well, he said the Gupta brother was part of the meeting.
The person who said that, who talked about me, was not part of the meeting.
Sorry?
He said the person who talked about me was not part of the meeting.
No. The person that Mr. Jonas said these things about you was the Gupta brother that he said he was having a meeting with.
Oh, I thought he said it was somebody who was passing on the passage or something.
No.
Okay, but I can't comment on it. I deny that there is any Gupta person who was responsible for my career. I was responsible for my career, and that especially because that hearsay evidence is not even corroborated by anyone. Nobody else overheard what they were saying or came here to say that we are taking care of Mr. Molefe's career. I don't know whether it happened or that Mr. Jonas is remembering it wrong, or it's just a figment of his imagination, or that he can't distinguish it from something that he dreamt to something that really happened. I don't know. But I can tell you now, as under oath, as evidence, that there was no Gupta brother that took care of my career.
Yes. I don't want to say took care, but of your career. But I think in my recollection of Mr. Jonas' evidence is that it was something like your career is taken care of, maybe not necessarily by them, but your career is you will be fine in terms of career. But let's complete the whole thing, because we have now talked about it. I mean, I don't know what finding I will make about Mr. Jonas's evidence and Mr. Tutuzani's evidence and Mr. Klomane's evidence about that meeting. what I will ultimately find to be the case. But if I were to find that indeed Mr. Jonas was told these things by a Gupta brother in that meeting, and he was made the offer that he said he was made, that if he agreed to be Minister of Finance and work with them, blah, 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 blah. It may well be that the fact that that Gupta brother seems to have known in October already that Minister Nene was going to be fired as Minister of Finance. It may well be that it would be reasonable to say it looks like the Gupta brothers were looking to get a Minister of Finance for the government who would meet with their approval. And I've had evidence about Mr. Van Rooyen, who was appointed as Mr. Nene's successor. He has given evidence here as well. He indicated the number of interactions that he had with, I think, one or other of the Gupta brothers between October and December before he was appointed. And there has been evidence about the advisors that he appointed, and that is Mr. Van Rooyen. And there is the investigation of the commission led it to ask some of the people who were officials of the ANC in March 2017. I think that's when Mr. Gordon was fired as Minister of Finance, asked what reasons Mr. Zuma may have told them why he was firing Mr. Gordon, and they filed affidavits. Mr. Mantashe, Dr. Zweli Mkhize was Treasurer General at the time, Mr. Mantashe was SG, and Ms. Jessie Duarte. They filed affidavits which are within the commission. And if you have not been given copies, you should be given copies. One of the things they say is that, yes, Mr. Zuma did discuss or tell them his plan to fire or leave out of cabinet Mr. Gordon, and they say he told them that he wanted to replace Mr. Gordon as Minister of Finance with you. And they say in those affidavits, the officials of the ANC all rejected that idea. And we do know, of course, that the person who replaced Mr. Gordon as Minister of Finance was then Mr. Kigaba. And in the meantime, I think in February 2017, if I'm not mistaken, you became a member of Parliament, National Assembly, for a few months. I think in May you resigned and went back to Eskom. So you might be able to say, look, I have no comment really on these things, but I mentioned them, and if you haven't been given the affidavits that I'm talking about, arrangements should be made for you to be given. And if you want to say, let me read the affidavits first and deal with this issue later, when I come back, that's acceptable as well.
Yeah, but Chairperson, I feel it's a bit unfair that people come here and say that we were gossiping about Mr. Molefe in his absence, and that I was at the house. I don't know about the fact that Mr. Jonas's meeting, whether it took place, 600 billion and so on. I'm not commenting about that. The fact that they talked about me at the meeting that I was not there and I'm not aware of, And it may have been Mr. Mkhize and a discussion at Luthuli House about me. It was gossiping because I was not there.
Well, I don't think it's fair to say it was gossiping because this was the President of the country, Mr. Zuma, and President of the ANC talking to to the top leadership of the ANC, the top 5, top 6, to say this is what I'm planning to do, and I guess he was
So
consulting
they were talking about me,
them. Yes.
and I was not there.
But I don't think it's fair to say they were gossiping.
Well, I don't know what's the definition of gossip, but
I'm sure you talk about a lot of other people when they are not there, but you wouldn't say you are gossiping all the time.
but that's what gossip is. I don't know, but
Especially-
let's not use the word gossip then. But they were talking about me, and I was not there, and I was not aware of the discussion. I don't know how that should reflect on me,
No. That's the
or
idea.
how I should take accountability
No, the idea.
for those discussions that took place in my absence.
No, as I said,
Or
you
how
know,
I should then now, in a commission of inquiry, explain myself about discussion that took place in my absence about me.
well, you see, as I say, you might say, look, I know nothing about it and have no comment about it, or you might have some comment. But a possible scenario might be that you might say, I don't know, you might say, well, I'm not surprised that Mr. Zuma mentioned to the officials of the ANC that he wanted me to replace Mr. Gordon because he had actually contacted me and asked me whether I would be prepared, and I said I would be prepared. So I'm not surprised. But you might say, I'm surprised because nobody ever talked about that to me. So the idea is just to enable you to say what you might know about these things.
Yeah, I know nothing about it, Chairperson, and I will not comment on it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, one should emphasize that, Mr. Molefe, there is a process of investigation and gathering information. Ultimately, the law makes a decision based on the evidence presented if it is uncontroverted. But the decision is not made based on reading the stars or making imaginations. So we are in the process, but the end will be based on the evidence. Now, in addition to this secondment issue,
Well, Mr. Selega, I just realized we've gone
we've
past
gone.
1 o'clock.
Yes, Chair.
I think let's take the lunch adjournment.
Indeed, yes.
We are at 9 minutes past 1. We will resume at 10 past 2.
Thank you, Chair.
We adjourn. we are supposed to continue, but we are unable to continue because we have received news that somebody that works closely with me has tested positive with COVID-19. It seems that in those circumstances, because I'm required to isolate myself, that we can't proceed in this form. I took the trouble during lunch to ask Mr. Selega to share the information with Mr. Masubu and all concerned. I understand that there is agreement that that is what should happen, namely we should adjourn. Is that confirmed?
That is confirmed, Chairperson. I did convey
Yes.
your
yes.
message to my
Mr. Masubu, you confirm, yeah. Okay. It's unfortunate, but it is the reality that we are all faced with now. And we have to find ways of how better to handle the situation. Because if each time somebody that has been in close contact with me tests positive, the hearings of the commission have got to be disrupted, then it could pose quite a problem for the commission's work and us finishing within the time within which we must finish. So I think that from my side, I think we should explore the possibility that if all concerned are available sometime next week on one of the days, we could explore the possibility of having the hearing via video link or via Zoom and I would be sitting in my place of isolation. So we must explore that and see whether it's possible. Obviously, because next week wasn't planned, that will only happen if Mr. Molefe is available, his legal team is available. I'm saying next week we could find a day where we could do that because the commission has been informed by the attorneys representing the former president, Mr. Zuma, that he will not be appearing before the commission next week. He says that should not in any way be seen as disrespect on his part for any legal process. It seems that he says it's because he believes the review application that he has lodged should be finalized first, and that also there is the matter that is in the Constitutional Court which has not been finalized. I'm not trying to exhaust every reason that he gives, but I think it's fair to give, at least to mention that those are the main reasons he gives through his lawyers. So we know that he is not going to be here next week. So it would be good if there is a way of using at least some of the days. So I don't know whether Mr. Slegan, you had any chance to speak to Mr. Masubu, but if you haven't, the discussion can be had after to see what's possible and what's not possible about sometime next week in relation to continuing with Mr. Molefe's evidence, but via Zoom or something.
Yeah. We did have a chance to speak about that, Chair. I know my learned friend was expressing some advice on that, I would say, and maybe he could be given an opportunity, is that right, to address the chairperson. He's fine, but he thinks we should consider some factors that might require us to self-isolate and
No, that's fine.
That's right.
The idea is that we should all talk about it and see whether we all think it's something that can or should be done or not. You know. There might be something that one is overlooking. It's just that one is trying to make sure that there is as little disruption to the hearings as possible, given the time constraint, limited time available.
Yes.
But obviously, that assumes that one is in isolation but is not feeling unwell. That assumes that one is okay.
That's one of the things.
Yeah. Maybe Mr. Masuku might wish to say something.
You want to come here? Yeah.
I'm thinking, Mr. Masuku, you must be saying I may as well use this one that they wanted me to use earlier.
Not that one. I must just accept that. Chief Justice, I mean, we have to follow the COVID protocol once you are exposed to someone with COVID. And you're quite correct that you now need to go and isolate. But it's not just you who must isolate. It's your staff.
Yeah, no,
Basically,
that's true.
It's everybody that has contact with you, who carries your bags, who carries your books, and everybody else.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that we shouldn't really be in a rush to arrange some hearing tomorrow, next week, without knowing exactly what your state of the state of situation looks like.
Yes.
I would propose that maybe in about 5 days, when the fog clears, and you still feel okay, then you can write to everybody and say, can we reconvene? And we'll make sure that Mr. Molefe is available to do that.
Yes.
We prefer being physically present.
Yes, okay.
And of course, this place has to be fumigated as well, because
that will be done.
So it's quite an an inconvenience to be exposed to this kind of thing. But it's quite rigorous.
It is.
So I would suggest we don't
fix anything so far at this stage.
And in respect of the other matter you mentioned, the love letter you already received.
Yes.
Perhaps that also resolves some of the difficulties we would have faced. I just thought I would mention that.
Well, when I saw the letter, I wanted to say to you, now you don't have to take the Fifth Amendment.
Yes. No, thank you, Chief.
No, that's fine. So I think that's a fair. Those are fair points. We will adjourn, and if we end up being able to use some time next week, good. But if we end up not being able because of whatever, it's fine. As we go along, we are learning in terms of how to best handle this situation. Maybe if and when it happens next time, I hope it never happens, but if it does happen, we might be better prepared in terms of some of the things that can be done. I'm sorry that we can't continue, but it's one of those things that one has no control over. Yeah. Okay, no, thank you.
Chair, we, from the Eskom work stream, we were going to have 2 evening sessions. So those sessions will also be impacted.
Yes.
Ms. Guptas.
Oh, yeah.
And Ms. Naidu.
The one that we arranged for Tuesday. Yeah, that will have to be cancelled for now.
Yes.
And the one that was this evening.
We were going to explore in regard to Ms. Naidu, yes.
Yeah. Okay, all right. We will talk early next week and see, maybe Tuesday, and see how things look. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
I told
Thank you,
Mr.
Chief.
I told Mr. Masupi that his attorneys wrote the letter prematurely, Chair. So they would have taken advantage. They played their hand too soon.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Mas.
And say it's divine providence. There is a divinity involved.
Okay, no, that's right. Mr. Molefe, I'm sorry that we can't proceed, but obviously you understand the situation.
No, I do understand, Chair.
Yes, yes. Arrangements will be made for the commission to continue with your evidence as soon as possible. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Then I have announced that for next week, Mr. Zuma will not be appearing before the commission in terms of the letter that the commission has received from his attorneys. But the week after next, if one is able to work and the one is fine, it will be, we'll hear evidence relating to state security. That is the week after next week. All right. Thank you very much. We will then adjourn for the day.
Thank you.
We adjourn.